Hello, welcome back to China Manufacturing Decoded from the Sofeast Group. Adrian, back here again this week with Renaud. Renaud's with me. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Renaud. I'm good. How are you doing? I enjoyed your episode with Gianmarco last week. I think that was quite
Mm,
interesting because it's kind of from a perspective that we don't always cover that
mm.
much because he's, of course, very much in the e-commerce side of things. But many people who are manufacturing in Asia, they are then going and selling on
Yeah,
e-commerce.
yes, of course, of course. I mean, nothing specific for, e-commerce sellers actually. Anything we
Mm,
discussed can also be applied one way or another to companies that sell
yeah.
maybe to big box stores or whatever. But
Mm,
it was the perspective of the buyer side, right? So that's interesting.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. So another good guest, and we'll keep getting on interesting guests as we go along. This is episode 181, and today's a topic that I think is really important, and that is product designs that you're going to send to a Chinese manufacturer need to be mature, right? And that's the interesting word
Hmm.
here. So when we talk about mature product designs, just a quick introduction to this topic, what are we talking about?
Hmm. Well, a manufacturer wants to have a product that's ready to industrialize, right? Maybe the product has already been running, has already been in production with another, another manufacturer, and there's a transfer, right? So they can pick it up. Okay, it's been made. Okay, they can look at it and say, okay, we know how to make that like this, and we know where to procure this part and that part, and so on, right? If
Hmm.
it's a totally new product, well, it's never been manufactured, and there's nothing quite like it. There's certain parts of the product that are quite unique. The manufacturer knows there's a certain amount of uncertainty. However, if you come to a manufacturer with how to say half-baked or not even baked at all kind of product design, they're not going to take it very seriously, right? They're going to think, what, there's still a lot of things here that are unclear. How does this work and this work and that works? I mean, if they haven't even got these kinds of details right, what kind of surprises are in store, right? So
Mm.
if you go to typical component suppliers and you send them certain parts that and the drawings, maybe the drawings are like sketches,
Mm.
or something like not even in CAD but hand sketches or something. They're gonna be like, okay, but there's a lot of information missing here. This is not a serious project, and they're not even gonna waste time quoting on it, right? I mean, in their mind it's a waste of time. They're just
Mm.
gonna skip it, right? Except if you are a very big and famous company, or there's a very special, story behind it. Now, if you go to a company that does manufacturing, but also helps you with the product development, okay, there are some of them. I mean, and we do that. Still, there's a certain sort of baseline that you need to hit, right? And that's the topic of today, right? If you don't hit
Yeah.
that baseline, the product is just not mature enough. You got to work on it in your country, or on your side, basically with your team, which might be a one or two, maybe an industrial designer and
Mm.
maybe an electronic engineer, maybe a mechanical engineer, maybe a firmware engineer. Start to put together some kind of proof of concept and so on. When I say on your side, I mean, you might find them on Upwork, you might find them in your city, you might find them in a design house that does all of this for you.
Hmm.
Usually that's the best way if you want to go fast, but don't go to a manufacturer with, sort of what do you say, a sketch on a napkin, right? That is definitely too immature.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That sounds very helpful. So this is where you need to be before you should proceed. And I mean, that there's no better advice than that, right? So in terms of when we start a manufacturing project, we have our own visualization
Hmm.
of a new product introduction process.
Hmm.
It's how we see it, and it basically has sort of six milestones. And you said before that in some cases these might get skipped, or maybe they're sort of glossed over and not enough attention is paid as we go through the new product introduction process. And that's a key point here, isn't it? About not ignoring important processes when we're
Oh,
starting a project.
right, right. So, I mean, different companies have different ways of cutting it, right? We have six phases. That there's more milestones than that, but let's say six big
Yeah, yeah,
phases.
yeah.
And whatever you cut it, but you need to have in mind, at least you're doing product development. Okay, well, there's at least keep some milestones in mind. Yeah, like have you documented the product requirements, at a high level, and then maybe more into the details? Have you identified, the key components and which ones will have to be custom designed? Have you already started to think of the materials, the technologies, the surface finishing, these kinds of things, the tolerances that, where there might have to be some kind of tight tolerances, some of the challenges that come with the design. You need to think of all that in a what we would call a feasibility study, right? And we
Mm.
discussed this. When was that? 2 or 3 episodes
A couple
ago.
of weeks ago, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, and so you should refer to that episode, because really, I mean, the whole feasibility study, the whole idea is to reduce the risks and address the challenges, and reduce, the unknowns and unknowns. And and overall, all of that is necessary to make the product design more mature. More mature simply
Mm.
means closer to being ready to be industrialized, right?
Mm.
Then when you're like in the thick of things, of the design phases, the engineering design, and you're designing, for example, there's, I don't know, for example, the enclosure. Let's say there's enclosure in plastic or in aluminum. Well, at one point you have to put it in CAD, right? Computer aided design software. And then, well, at one point it's good enough, even maybe without the tolerances, without the color, material, and finishes, without all this information. Maybe it's fine if you work with a relatively
Mm.
mature and sophisticated kind of supplier that will help you do some of that work, right? They will take it at one point, and then they will help you flesh it out. Now, in most cases, if you go to work with Chinese manufacturers, is not enough. It's not enough, right? They will look at
Mm.
it again, as I mentioned. They will like, "Wow, what is this? It's not clear. I'm not even sure. I mean, is it going to be like, is it going to be white, black, glossy? Is it going to be stainless steel? Is it going to be carbon steel? Is it going to be aluminum? Is it, what are the tolerances needed? What are the critical to quality points? Like, there's so many questions. They don't want to waste their time clarifying all this and spending time, because their business model is not to sell hours of engineering and design work. Their
Mm.
business model is just to produce. So they need something that's already ready to go, right? So with the ready to go, like must be ready to go. With these kinds of suppliers, you must have completed the product design. Okay. It's got to have been prototyped, probably several iterations, if it's not a very, very simple product. Um, Need to have been maybe user tested, performance tested, reliability and durability tested, right? You got to have validated the product design is okay, is sound, is ready to go into production. Um, and so you need to know where you are at in terms of milestones. You need to know what supplier you're going to talk to. Now, what happens very often is that some companies will contact us and we'll look at it. Okay, if it's like a sketch on a napkin, and they
Mm.
haven't worked with a professional designer or engineer, they haven't done anything. usually with this, sorry guys, it's a bit too early. Maybe you need to involve some maybe an industrial designer, and you need to involve this kind of engineer. And first, maybe you need to document, give them a brief and everything. Like do all this, then come back to us, right?
Mm.
Now, if they come to us and it's obvious, okay, there's been some engineering work on this, and they have documented more or less, documented what is necessary and so on. Okay, that's good. Then if we see that it's a good fit for us, we'll review this, and typically we'll help them by getting feedback from specialized component and material suppliers, right? So for example, they say, oh, I don't know, we need to have that kind of ceramic part here, and it needs to be able to withstand that kind of stress and so
Mm.
on and so forth. All right, well, we are going to reach out to some ceramic suppliers, and we're going to keep it very simple for them. Just give them a little bit of the context. They don't need to know the whole product. They don't need to know, what it is, what it's going to do, and where it's going to be sold, and how much it's going to be sold, and so on. They don't need to know all that, but they need to know, hey, it's going to be a part roughly that shape and that size, and is it, and these are the requirements. Does this even sound feasible to you? And then we get some of them will comment on it and give some feedback and so on, right?
Mm.
Some of the suppliers would be more willing to provide feedback, even though there's no clear and direct way to them getting business. But also we'll need to get to give them an idea. The first order would be 1,000 pieces, and then after that it's going to be 2,000 pieces, and then 5,000 pieces, and then the projected yearly quantity is going to be 10,000 pieces for year two. You know, this is quite important to get their ear. Otherwise, if there's zero business interest, why would they, spend time or waste time, as they usually think, on that? They have
Yeah,
better fish to fry, right? So
sure.
it doesn't all have to be completely the full engineering design work doesn't have to be completed, but the way to approach the suppliers to get certain types of early indications of feasibility, of challenges, of price, it has to be done in a certain way. Typically,
Mm.
the American, Australian, Canadian, English, whatever, person who has started to work on a new product design and directly contacts Chinese suppliers and say, hey, this is the sketch and napkin, and suppliers are just not going to take them seriously, right? In China,
Hmm.
most of the time they're going to be like, what is this? I mean,
Yeah.
they, we get 100 requests a day, and really, if they are prominently displayed on Alibaba and these types of directories, they might get 100 requests a day,
Mm.
and they have to eliminate two-thirds of them right off the bat, right? Because they can't sustain conversations with that many people.
Mm.
So if you want to be in the surviving 30%, and then in the surviving 10% and so on, you got to be direct to the point, show them there's some potential business, and keep it simple. Keep the request kind of simple for some feedback, right? Yeah, then later when there are CAD designs, CAD drawings that are more advanced, more mature, then you can show it to them, and then they will see, okay, that's really something. Like an engineer really did work on that, and they might, yeah, provide feedback on it, because providing feedback allows them to align.
Hmm.
This is our capabilities. This is what we can do, and this is the product design that the customer wants. Let's align it so that that's how to get manufacturing orders, right? That
Mm.
makes sense. So basically, to summarize, know where you are in terms of the must-do kind of milestones in the product development. I'm not even
Mm.
talking about going into tooling and pre-production preparations, pilot runs, and so on. This is, we're really just talking about the first three phases, the first half, right, of the work, which is really getting to a final prototype
Mm.
and final CAD drawings, right?
So
So
just to recap those we start with specifications, then we go to feasibility study, and then we go to prototyping. Those are the first three phases as we categorize them.
Right. Prototyping, yeah, and all the engineering design behind it, right? The prototypes
Mm-mm-mm.
are just the tangible manifestations of that product design in a way
Yeah.
that can be presented to users from feedback, tested for performance, tested for reliability, durability.
Mm.
In some cases, sort of pre-tested for compliance or certifications, at least to know, for example, for electromagnetic compatibility, for if there's electronics, to see if it's likely to have an impact on other electronic products, or also if other electronic products are, are likely to have an impact on it, if it's too vulnerable.
Mm.
These kind of things. It's possible to do some early tests to have an idea before going too far and then having to do a U-turn, which, wastes a lot of time if it's later in the design stage. But anyway, so yes, we're just talking about the product design here before thinking about the process design.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. At the moment, you've made the point that you need your manufacturer in China or I guess in other countries as well, of course, to be interested in your project. They need to see that you are
Mm,
credible, that you are
mm,
prepared, that this
mm.
product that you are trying to get manufactured has legs. But what about if somebody does take the job when you don't have mature designs? I mean, is there a risk that somebody maybe that's not a good manufacturer would say, "Yeah, we'll give it a go," and then you end up just throwing good money after bad on it?
Yeah, so the risk, especially in China, is that you get in contact with some suppliers that are overly optimistic and I would say aggressive, like, yeah, yeah,
Mm,
okay, it's no problem, we can do it, which is the typical Chinese, reflex action. It's a question, hey, can you do it? You want to do it? You will say yes, 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 right? You have a doubt? Yes. But you will still say
mm,
yes. Can you do it? Yes. Like with confidence, right? Because
yeah.
this is I mean, historically in China over the past 40 years, the companies that have been saying, yes, we can do it, and then launching themselves aggressively with all their resources, with a short-term burst of energy, these are the
Mm,
ones that came on top. Okay.
mm,
So, I mean, they observe and then they see, okay, well, that's how to make a sale, right? That's how to do it. But the problem with these people is that they don't think of feasibility. They go straight into it. They run into problems. They try and they try and they still run into problems. And they really understand it hits them, oh, this product design is maybe not as simple and straightforward as we thought. And our previous experiences only carry us so far. Ah, well, we never get out of this. So, okay, drop it, right? So on their
mm,
side, they wasted engineering and sourcing kind of resources. On your side, you wasted 3 months or 6 months of working with one supplier and getting nowhere, just
mm,
discovering ways that don't work, right? Just because it was not a structured approach. So yeah, yeah,
mm.
this is actually quite common.
Okay, good tip there then. So when we talk about immature product designs, then, are there some red flags that you can suggest to everybody that will sort of give you a hint that, uh-oh, I think where I am, I'm not at a mature stage enough to
Hmm.
go out to manufacturers?
Right, right. Well, one is what I mentioned before, sort of the
Yeah.
sketch on a napkin, right? Some people, some people don't like, I mean, you gotta work with a designer, an engineer to start to design it, to start to put it in computer-aided design software, CAD design, to have some drawings and things like that. Um,
Mm,
Otherwise, it really looks like you came up with the idea 5 minutes ago, right?
mm,
And some people have 10 ideas per day, right? But and most of them, 90 or 95% or 99% of them 99% of them are bad. So
Mm.
I don't want to hear your latest idea, right? I want to see something that you've been working on for some time and chewing on and getting
Yeah.
feedback from other people on, right? And there's got to be like a team that worked on it, not just ideally not just one person in their corner, because a team with different perspectives will tend to surface some issues and ideas and make it much better, right? So that's one. Also, yeah, another one is that maybe you worked with an industrial designer to make it look good, right? You say, okay, I need to show it to people. I need to make it look good. I need some renderings that make it look really nice. Okay, so that's a plus. Obviously, it does clarify a lot of things.
Mm.
However, sometimes we look at it and we're like, oh, you know, this is sometimes it's not an industrial design, it's just a concept design. Meaning that you look at it and you think, how in the hell, is this going to be manufactured? Like, there's no clear path to manufacturing. In some cases, yeah, the most common mistake that they will think of plastic enclosure, and then they will not ask themselves, how is this going to be made? I would say, well, I mean, what is this? Plastic injection molding? There's no way to make it in that that shape, right? Or what blow molding with this? Oh, forget it. What else, right? And then they say, oh, but we put it together. But how? 3D printing, right? But you're not going to be 3D printing it thousands of times. Very expensive, very slow, and very brittle also. Doesn't work for mass production, right?
Mm.
Oh, okay. But this is also another one. Or sometimes it is an industrial design, so that's better. Okay. But there's a lot of things that are not there, so you skipped the description of the features of the product, the requirements for a product. What is it supposed to do? Oh, not sure. It's not there. There's no brief. Okay. What are the key
Mm.
components? The critical components. Oh, yeah, not really sure how we'll do this or whatever. This is just the look of the product, but how does it work? Oh, yeah, not so clear. Right? So that is a red flag. If they don't know exactly how it works, they have not spent much time really thinking about it. That is a really
Mm.
huge red flag, actually. Sometimes it's just parts, but it's not clear how they're connected together or work together, right? Very typical sometimes after industrial design. So you need a structural engineer or mechanical engineer to work on it and actually show exactly how it's all working together, etc., etc. I mean, I could go on and on, but these are some
Sure.
issues. Sometimes they we also ask, okay, what have you done some market research? Who's going to use it? Who's going to buy it? And they're like, well, right now I'm kind of scratching my own itch, and I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's going to work very good, but
My uncle said he thought
okay,
it was great.
yeah, right. So how are you going to know? You're going to go into mass production with, and then maybe they say, oh, I put it on Kickstarter. But like, yeah,
Mm.
okay, but to put it on Kickstarter, you need to still have some kind of user in mind. I mean, what kind of situations are you going to show in the photos and the videos? What
Hmm.
who are you kind of going to talk to? Like, like tech savvy people in New York City, or you know, what kind of people are you going to target? And then how are you going to draw traffic to the Kickstarter page in Facebook, Instagram, whatever, Google, anywhere? I mean, how are you going to do that? Who are you going to target? You have no idea. Well, that's a huge problem. Also, you don't know
Mm.
how they're going to use it. So you can't plan for the product performance, product reliability, and durability. You can really think and plan for all that. That is a huge red flag. Okay. And Chinese factories often will not ask for this. Um, but when I ask and I hear these kind of things, is like, wow, that is no good. That is really
Mm.
a big missing block here in the project, right? And sometimes they think of something and they start to go into design and say, oh, here it is. And I'm like, but wait a minute. Last year at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, I saw at least five companies doing that, right? How are you going to differentiate yourself? And they're like,
Mm.
oh, what? Which one? Which one? I don't know. Okay, well, that's an issue, right? Or, or they go into, I don't know, like cables, chargers, these kinds of categories where you have 1,000 different Chinese ODM suppliers competing for it. How are you going to compete against all these companies? It
Yeah.
better be very highly differentiated. Otherwise, how's it going to work? Uh,
Mm.
Especially if they say, well, we're going to compete on price and we're going to make high volumes and everything. Well, you're not going to win that battle against
No.
1,000 ODM Chinese suppliers. There's no way you'll be cheaper than them.
Yeah.
So these are typical red flags. Yeah. So
Mm.
basically, to summarize, you need to do a certain amount of work on your side. Set up a team, even if it's just freelancers and so on, and have some advisors. You know, get your product concept to a certain level of maturity before you start contacting people, right? They,
Mm.
if you need some support, if you need, a sounding board and so on, there are communities for that out there. For example, for
Mm-hmm.
electronic products, sometimes I send people to the what's it called, the
That's
Hardware
right.
Academy
Yeah.
by John Thiel, right? They will support you. They will give you some feedback. They will give you some pointers.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people out there in that community that are just starting, right? And that's fine.
Mm.
It's perfectly fine to be starting and get some, look for feedback and advice. But don't go to China at that stage, right? If you really have a
Mm.
unique product, there's a lot of steps, and going to China is not among the first steps.
Mm. Mm. So once again, when we refer back to the new product introduction process, it's a case of just take a second to stop, take a second to seriously go into detail in those early phases to make sure
Mm,
that the project is it's built on a solid foundation. I think that's what you're basically talking about today, isn't it? So, and that
mm,
makes a lot of sense. And I know with inventors, it can be exciting and they're rushing to try and, speed through it and get the product realized, get it even
mm,
to market. And I get that. I do get it. But, you've seen it. We've all seen it time and time again where mistakes made early on, it just leads into either a failed project or even a financial disaster. So, and not only for
mm,
inventors, even for larger businesses. But yeah,
mm,
I
mm,
mean,
mm,
that's really good advice today. And so,
mm.
yeah, I hope the
Yes,
listeners
yes.
are thinking, yep, I got to avoid those red flags with my product. We've
Mm,
referred to some different content today and the Hardware Academy as well. I'll put the links to those in the show notes for everybody.
mm. Great. All right. Well, I think that was a good one. I hope listeners are taking stock of this advice in case they're
Yeah,
developing a new product or maybe thinking of doing that.
that's it. That's what it's all about. Thanks, Renaud.
All right. Thanks, Adrian. And thanks everybody. And you'll hear from us next week as usual.
Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share because it will really help others discover us too.